Hey everybody, how's it going? Blades of God here from Hammer Bros Gaming, coming at you with our newest Gears Tactics. Where is it? There it is. Immortal Legion Achievement Guide. Just as a reminder, the Immortal Legion achievement requires you to complete the entire game without losing a single unit. And because we're not playing on a lower difficulty, we are playing on Insane. If your unit's health drops to 0, your unit dies. There's no down but not out status in this mission, or in this playthrough, I should say. So if you lose a unit, don't worry. You can restart the mission. You can restart from a checkpoint. It doesn't invalidate the achievement at all. As long as you finish the last mission of the game without losing a unit, you're going to unlock this achievement. Please do remember that even though you're following a guide like this, even if you put all your units in the exact same place that I do, that doesn't mean the AI is going to react exactly the same way and move exactly the same way. There's a lot of RNG in this game. But I'm hoping that these guides are going to at least give you some tricks and tips and plans that you can use if you're struggling with a certain mission. Speaking of the mission, this video is going to be covering Act 1-4. This is a bit of a stumbling block for a lot of people, myself included. I ended up having to restart from checkpoint, the midway checkpoint in the mission, quite a few times. The enemies, there's a lot of them, and they are aggressive in this mission. No new enemy types to talk about. Thankfully, we do unlock the sniper class for us to use after we complete this mission, which is going to make life much easier. But that's about all there is to say, guys. If you're finding this video or this video series helpful, please leave a like on the video. Comment if you have any questions or concerns or problems. I'll do my best to help you out. And like I said, if you're enjoying the series, please consider subscribing to the channel. Join Hammer Nation, become a Hammer Bro. We'd love to have you on board. But that's enough of me talking. Let's get right into the video, right into the guide, because I know that's what you're here to see. Alright guys, so let's dive right into it. We're going to take a look at the equipment we're going to be using. You can see what I have equipped here. We earned a power barrel as a reward from our last mission. And for some chest armor, we have a destroyer vest with 15 health and untraceable. Untraceable gives you a 30% reduction from enemy overwatch shots, but on Insane, that's practically useless since you never want to trigger overwatch. So taking a quick look at the 2 skill points we have to spend on Gabe, you can see that we took Empower and Chainsaw Attack Mastery. So we're setting ourselves up. We're going to stick pretty much to the right side of the skill tree, as I said in the last video, and we're going to be aiming for the right bottom side because we want to get Surge. Surge is going to be very useful later in the game. But for now, being only early on, high-powered shot is definitely useful. Weak point doesn't seem that useful, but every time you get a kill, it gives a 5% critical hit chance for the rest of your teammates for this turn. So it's pretty useful. Plus, it gives us the ability to unlock Chainsaw Rush. And what Chainsaw Rush is I think it's called Chainsaw Rush, is going to do is that every time we get a kill with a chainsaw attack, we gain an extra action ability or an action point. So that's going to let us execute an enemy with the chainsaw and then get away from being out in the open. So moving over to Sid, you can see we have the Sleek Stock with a 5% crit chance, and we had earned a 7% crit chance Sleek Stock, so we're just going to change that out. So we like that crit chance. It makes it increases our damage, which is always a good thing. And then looking at the 2 skill points we have to spend on Sid, you can do Rage Shot, but the thing with Rage Shot is that it's equal to 100% of the damage that you've taken. And again, since we're trying not to take damage, it's not necessarily a great skill to have. Leech, by the same mentality, is not all that great because we're trying to avoid taking damage, and healing abilities are kind of a waste in this Insane playthrough. So what we're going to do is we're actually wanting to get to free Bayonet, but we also want recharging Bayonet. So pretty much everything that we can do to take the Bayonet skill up is going to be useful. So I took recharging Bayonet, and I took Enraged Bayonet, and that's just going to make our Bayonet attacks that much more versatile. If you didn't catch it, Enraged Bayonet means that if I kill an enemy with a Bayonet, I get a 20% damage boost and 20% damage resistance for the remainder of that turn. So now, while I was explaining that, I went into the barracks and I recruited a couple more soldiers to max out my roster. The reason I do that is because sometimes these guys that you recruit are actually going to have better parts for your weapons that you can swap out with them. As you can see, I just got an accuracy mag and a 5% accuracy bonus for Gabe by switching it out with, I believe it was Shelly. I'm going to do the same thing here looking at my scout Marcella. I got an accuracy grip, but since I've got Disrupt on there already, I want to hold on to Disrupt. It's much more useful. So not necessarily the best equipment this run, but it gives you the idea of why you always want to recruit your allies to the max and rotate the guys you're not using to try to get some new equipment. So looking at Ramon here, he's got a power handle for 15 damage, and I was considering swapping over to Wolf, but I'm looking at least Ramon. He's level 2, so he has a couple of abilities unlocked, whereas Wolf doesn't have any, and it just kind of made sense to stick with Ramon at this point. So Slider is the guy we're going to be sticking with, and I'm just sort of looking at what I could potentially use for skills on him. So looking at the equipment he has a power handle. Looking at the magazine, he has an extended ammo and a power barrel, so he's doing some good stuff. And you can see I can equip one on Wolf there because I had 2, and I decide not to swap this out because, and I did equip a power barrel because I had 2 of those, but I end up sticking with Ramon in the next mission because, again, Wolf has none of the, Tyrone has none of the abilities unlocked, so we're going to switch over our scout to have frags just like we did in the last video with Gabe instead of stim, because stim grenades aren't very useful. And I realized that I still have this destroyer vest, and I figure, might as well give it to somebody who's just using a cadet plate. I realize that I'm running the scout without anything, so I decide to just throw on whatever extra gear I had on her since I'm bringing her into this mission. 15 health in the heavyweight skill. It's not probably going to be a game changer, but it might be enough to eke out you taking a partial hit or something like that and still surviving. So worthwhile. Not going to be, you know, not going to make your game totally easy by any means, but every little bit helps. So Act 1 for Survivors. We need Gabe and Sid for this. It's required, part of the squad requirements. And our optional objective is to kill or down 7 or more enemies using the Overwatch ability, which should be a piece of cake. We got a heavy. There's plenty of enemies in this mission. This mission is probably going to be one of the first real sticking points. I know for me this was one of the missions that gave me the most difficult time because you face a lot of enemies here. This is the first real, almost it feels like a horde mode where they just keep coming at you. And you don't have the best equipment, so it's very easy to get overwhelmed if you're not using your Overwatch and your grenades very strategically. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to skip through the kind of opening scenes here. There's a cutscene that you could watch, but we skipped it because you can watch it on your own if you want. And all we're going to do here, we're going to move our soldiers over to the left, and then we're going to move our scout even further because she can... she's going to be able to reach those enemies a little bit better with her frag grenade. We may not be able to take any off the board, but we're going to damage 3 of them to about a third, down to about a third health, which is going to be huge because we're going to set up Overwatch. There's a little doorway right on the other side of that barrel. And now I'm actually going to use Sid, and there we go. We're going to take all 3 of them off the map. Boom. If we hadn't been able to do that, if Sid couldn't have reached them or they were too spread out, even dropping those enemies down to a third health is huge because, like I said, we're going to set up an Overwatch, like, kill zone right on the other side of that barrel, down on right there. And what's going to happen is the enemies, the AI almost always charges through there, or at least tries to set up in that area. So if we can get a bunch of Overwatches set up on that spot, it's going to make our life a lot easier. So as you can see, like I said, there's 2 drones there who are heading for that opening. So we're going to kind of move our units down here and try to cut them off. I don't like, at this point, using all 3 of my action points without being able to set up an Overwatch, but I don't have a lot of choice in the matter, as there's not a lot of cover between where I am and where I'm going. So, as you can see, again, I'm sort of using the Overwatch to cover where Gabe is, and I'm going to try to move my scout and Gabe down here, down to the lower level, a little bit at a time. Thankfully, there's only 2, because we took out those 3 drones with the grenades right at the beginning, we only have 2 drones to worry about right now, and I don't know if the AI is adaptive, but it seems like if we have fewer enemies, the enemies aren't as aggressive, and when you have a lot of enemies, they'll rush you. So they ran out. That drone ended up in the wide open without taking any cover, which was a little foolish on his part, but whatever, not going to complain about it. He does have Gabe in an Overwatch, which is not ideal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my scout and I'm going to try and hit him, which I do, and it was a critical hit, so that actually downed him, cleared the Overwatch cone, and freed up Gabe to do some attacks and do some damage. And now that I've got one viable enemy on the board, I mean, he could be revived by the other drone, but it's not very often that happens, even on Insane. So, just to be sure, I'm going to Overwatch him in case the drone decides to run out and try to revive his buddy. I'm going to have my Heavy, who's up high and going to have a better accuracy and critical hit bonus, do the same thing, and you can see that double Overwatch just downed him. So now I get 2 enemies who are downed and no enemies who are in range to attack. I'm going to send my Scout up here to execute these enemies, and I just circled on the map there with my cursor that there's 2 more drones who are up top there. So instead of going in for the other execution, which is what I had planned, I'm actually going to fall back and kind of slow play it. Now that those enemies have been on screen, they should advance towards me, and I'm going to do kind of the same thing we did in the last mission, where you don't rush. There's no kill timer, there's nothing to really, I'm sorry, it wasn't the last mission. The last mission there was a kill timer. But you don't need to rush in this mission because there is no kill timer. It's just fight your way to the truck and then survive the horde onslaught, so to speak. But with that one execution that the Scout got, it gave Sid 4 action points, which is enough to get him up here, do the execution. I still got 1 action point left, and I'm going to fall back behind that barrel. Gives me double full cover, which is nice. You could see the shield that appears. That shield tells you what kind of cover you're in. If it's half lit up, like it is right there, it means that you've got half cover. If it is a fully lit up shield, that means you've got full cover. And the difference is the half cover gives you a 20% damage reduction, the full cover gives you a 40% damage reduction. And again, my own personal theory is that enemies are a lot less likely to target your units when they're in full cover, and they're more likely to just go into Overwatch. If they're in half cover, or Lord forbid you don't make it to cover, those enemies are going to do everything they can to try to get shots on you. So, not a good idea to not be in full cover whenever you can. Half cover if you can't be in full cover, and always be in at least half cover. Never leave yourself just wide open. You can see with my Scout, I didn't use my shotgun. I actually switched over to my snub pistol and overwatched that doorway. And don't forget to use your snub. I know that it's not as powerful as your primary weapons, but the snub is actually a lifesaver. It has bailed me out of quite a few situations where either I couldn't hit an enemy from a distance or I didn't want to chance it. And you can see right there is a great example. So I was in half cover, I got a 20% damage reduction, and yet still I lost, what? I have 500 health, so 410 health to that one attack. So it's very possible to get killed even when you're in half cover like that. But it happens. I mean, you're playing Gears on Insane. Even if you do everything perfectly right, sometimes the AI is still just going to screw with you and say, nope, you're going to die or you're going to take damage. And sometimes there's not much you can do about that. So, anyway, back to the actual in-game what's happening. Again, I threw a grenade, took that one drone who shot Gabe off the map, and then I've got my Heavy overwatching that doorway. I've got Sid overwatching the right outside the doorway in case anything tries to push through. I moved Gabe up so he would be on full cover, and the angle he will be at now makes it a lot harder for any of the enemies to try to shoot at him. My Scout is... I'm a little bit at a loss right now on what to do because I only got 2 action points. I can't really advance her anywhere where she'll be safe. So again, I'm going to repeat the same thing I did last time. Just use my snub pistol and overwatch that doorway. Again, it's not a super powerful weapon, but any damage that you can put out is better than not putting out any damage at all. And you can see again why Overwatch is your best friend. You always want to be overwatching. Is I took out one enemy, interrupted another one, so now I have an easy picking enemy right out in the open. I'm going to, as you can see, I'm trying very hard to map out my route here so I don't end up triggering an Overwatch because Gabe is so close to death. But if I take it slow, and I'm trying to find that sweet spot where you can actually slide into cover and extend your distance a little bit. But if you take it slow, you can map out paths like this where you're not going to trigger an Overwatch. So I made it all the way around him. I've got Chainsaw Rush, so I know once I use my Chainsaw ability to kill that guy, I'll get 1 more point. But I had kind of I had a different opinion or a different thought and that was this. If I can interrupt this drone, I'm going to then take Sid, use his bayonet charge. That's only going to use one action instead of using both actions and leaving me with just one for Gabe. So it's actually going to give me 2 actions to move back into a relative safe place, and that leaves me with my 2 actions to put Gabe into a safe place. So yes, that was a net zero move. I mean, I didn't gain anything with Gabe, but sometimes when you're playing this game, you kind of get an idea of how you want to approach a situation, and then halfway through you're like, oh, that's not going to work. You can always use the save and quit option to reload your checkpoint. I'm sorry, you can always reload your checkpoint to reload your checkpoint. And that is an option, but right there I didn't have to do it. I could just backtrack on myself. And again, we've got 1 drone left on the board. I definitely could be playing more aggressively right now, but, you know, it's like, why play aggressive? I know that there's no enemies that are going to drop in or spawn in behind me. I know that we're not going to have any E-holes opening up right now, so let the enemies come to me, find that opportune moment when I can get in there and really mix it up without putting myself at risk. I'm going to move my scout up because she's so far back right now that I can't really utilize her for anything. Plus she has her frag grenade ready, so that's always a useful thing. I'm going to throw the frag back here, try to land it as close to that drone as I can to do maximum damage, plus hopefully destroy the cover he was behind, which I did. And now I'm going to use Gabe in his chainsaw attack, because now I do know there's 1 enemy left on the entire map. He's all the way over by the big truck, the mining rig. Plus I used command, so that healed me a little bit, healed everybody else, and I have 1 action point due to rush to fall back. So now again, Gabe healed up a little bit, he's in safe full cover, and that 1 drone who's left is way on the other side of the map, and he's not really going to do anything to bother us. Actually, ideally, if he saw us or if we got close enough, we would want him to chase us out a little bit, so we didn't have to try to cover so much ground to get to him. But that doesn't end up happening. It's not a big deal. All we're going to end up doing, he moves a few steps and sits right there. I've seen the AI do this a couple of times where they just put 1 drone right in that objective ring, and he just kind of stutter steps around in the middle. I don't know why it happens. I don't know if it's a specific thing that is triggered because of what I'm doing, or if it just happens sometimes, but whatever the case, he doesn't really go very far. So I'm going to set up some overwatches here just to protect Gabe, make sure that he doesn't get blitzed by this drone rifle, which is the other thing. These drones, or the AI that controls the enemies, is good enough to know that if you're low on health, they're going to try to target, they're going to prioritize that low health unit and try to take him off the map. As you can see right there, again, the drone did 1 little stutter step, definitely didn't move the full distance that he can move. And all I ended up doing was hitting him with the overwatch shot just a little bit. Thankfully his overwatch cone was outside of the pickup radius for the equipment case, so I was able to grab it with Sid without triggering the overwatch. And now I'm kind of contemplating what I want to do to take out this drone. What I'm trying not to do is use the bayonet charge, because I don't want to actually activate the next part of the map yet. But then I decide, screw it, I'll just have Gabe do it. He activates his command, heals himself a little bit. He's the only one who's damaged, so not a big deal. So once you step into that ring of where the mining rig is, you're going to trigger the timer for the next section of this mission. And what's going to happen is you're going to be in a horde-like scenario where there's going to just be a lot of enemies coming at you and you have to hold this location. You definitely could have taken your time and taken out that drone with distance fire, with ranged attacks, and not activated the timer yet. And what that would have done is it would have given you a chance to go over, grab the other equipment case, and kind of get your units in position before the enemy started coming in. But not a big deal. We're going to handle this situation, and I'll show you what I end up doing. You have 1 E-hole that opens up right in front of, like, where the mining rig is. You can see that I'm sending my heavy over to this kind of alleyway in the back, and that's because on the next turn, you're going to have another E-hole pop up there. So position a soldier so you can plant a grenade on top of the E-hole and then get far enough away where you're not going to be in the blast zone. That's going to cut down the number of enemies you have to fight drastically. And the really tough part is that I'm pretty sure both sets of E-holes are going to have grenadiers come out of them. And when you have grenadiers in close like this, it's not good. So in addition to these E-holes, we're going to have 2 flights of wretches drop in on the right side, sort of in the direction that I'm overwatching right now. Then we're going to have another flight drop in on the left side. After you take out the wretches, you're going to have another round of reinforcements come in that have grenadiers and rifle drones. So you can see there's 1 set, and here's 2 sets of the wretches. Each set has 5, so you have a total of 10 wretches on the board right now. Normally, if you hadn't taken out that E-hole, you also would have had to deal with a couple of grenadiers, but we took it out beforehand, so that preemptively canceled the grenadiers. You can see that E-hole is popped up just like I said it would. So I have my heavy right there. He's going to move up. He's going to plant a grenade and then fall back. So you see right here, plants the grenade and then falls back to cover just far enough where he won't be within that blast zone. It doesn't necessarily take anything off the board this round for active enemies, but like I said, it preemptively stops you from having to deal with 2 grenadiers that are popping up right in your area of operation. And again, the tricky thing with the E-holes is that if you don't cancel them out, the enemies that emerge from them are going to be able to attack as soon as they spawn in. Whereas enemies that are dropped off by the Reavers, they can move, but they will not attack on that turn. So what we're doing here is we're basically just going to set up some overwatches just to try to prevent the enemies from getting too close to us. Those 3 or 4 wretches that are kind of on the right side, I know that they're too far away to get next to me and attack, so I'm not worried about them. That one right there that I was overwatching, I knew he was close enough to do some damage, so it was more just trying to keep that left-hand side from hitting us. Unfortunately, both my overwatch shots missed on that last wretch, but not a big deal. We've got one of them damaged, another one of them who's just close enough that the shots are almost guaranteed to hit. And like I said, these wretches are going to move up, but hey, they can't move up close enough to use their melee attacks, so we're still in good shape here. So we're going to, now you can see that Gabe's has a great line of sight on a lot of these enemies, but again, you want to take distance into account. The Lancer has a surprisingly short range for being a rifle, and that drone that I just killed is, that wretch that I just killed is about as far as I feel comfortable shooting, unless it's a throwaway shot where it doesn't really matter if I hit him or not because I've got other allies to back me up. But with this many enemies on the board, you need to be making your shots count, and if the enemy was further away from Gabe at that point, I wouldn't have risked a shot and wasting an action point. So right here, we're using Sid's grenade to try to take as many wretches off the board as we can. We end up getting 3, which is definitely good. I got 1 shot left, 80% with a 42% crit chance. I'll definitely take that, and it did activate the crit hit. So he's gone in 1 shot, and I even have enough AP to reload for the next round. That leaves me with my Scout and my Heavy. I'm going to use my Scout to overwatch because, again, the Wretch AI is very direct. It's going to want to come directly at us, and that just means, okay, I'll use that to my advantage. I'm going to overlay my Overwatch shots, so I have plenty of firepower focused on him. And here comes the last flight of enemies. Like I said, we've got 2 Grenadiers and 3 Rifle Drones, and the problem with this combination is that, as I said in an earlier video, ideally we want to damage the Grenadier so they rampage, or they berserk, I'm sorry, and then we want to move in close and execute them with either the Retro Lancer or the Lancer Chainsaw. But if we do that, what that's going to do is open us up for shots from the Rifle Drones. So the trick is you need to get the Grenadiers close enough without getting the Rifle Drones close that you can melee or one-shot them with the Lancer or the Retro Lancer and not be exposed to additional fire from the drones. So the way we're going to do that is, or the ways you can go about that is using your Overwatch to damage them while the Grenadiers move, and then executing them on the very next turn, and hoping that the drones don't get close enough to really, you know, shoot at you. Or you can try to take the drones off the board first and then just leave the Grenadiers for cleanup, because before the Grenadiers rampage, their movement is not all that great. They can't move that far. So you can use grenades, or if you had we don't have it in this mission, but we will afterwards. Once you get a sniper, you can definitely prioritize your other enemies first and leave the Grenadiers. But what we're going to do here is basically say, alright, I'm going to use a grenade, and I'm going to try to hit all 3 of these guys. Now, normally in almost any other situation, I would not want to enrage both the Grenadiers at this, or berserk both of the Grenadiers at the same time. But since we have the rush ability, the chainsaw rush, I know that I can take one off the board right here with a chainsaw attack, and I'm going to get an additional action point to get back into cover. So, boom, there's one Grenadier off the board. I've got 1 point. 1 action point left. I also triggered weak point, which is going to increase the likelihood of a critical hit from my allies, which is going to be, you know, in this situation very useful because you want to maximize your chance of damage. So now I'm going to have Sid move over here, and we're going to use the Retro Lancer, or the Retro Charge, to take out the other Grenadier that we had damaged. Because we have recharging bayonet, enraged bayonet, I'm actually going to get a 20% damage boost and 20% defensive boost. So I'm now going to say, okay, hop over here, and I'd actually misfigured my action point allotment on that, because what I wanted to do was shoot at the damaged drone with Sid, and that damage boost should have been enough to take him off the board. But, you know, sometimes that happens. You miscount your action points and you miscount what you're doing. Not a big deal. Just improvise and overcome the situation or the problem. So instead what we end up doing, I see that we have 2 drones left. I'm a little worried that that left drone is going to circle around the left-hand side. But I decide that even if he does that, he's not going to be able to move far enough to get a shot on any of my guys. So I'm not going to prioritize him right now. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a double overwatch, expecting that drone on the right to advance down towards our enemies, our allies. And I'm kind of pleasantly surprised to see that, well, they both go that way. Unfortunately, the drone decided to take a shot at Sid, but because he had that 20% defensive boost from the Retro, and because he had the 20% defensive boost from the half cover, that's a 40% damage reduction, which is really good. You can see I just took an Overwatch shot, but I was in full cover and had Untraceable, so 30% damage reduction from the Overwatch shot for Untraceable, and 40% for full cover gives me a 70% damage reduction, so I didn't take a lot of damage there, but probably not the best move that I could have made. Cards on the table, I was rushing at this point because the amount of time I had to finish this mission and this stream was running out, so I get a little bit more risky with my decision making and a little more hasty, but we down that one enemy. I know that we're down to having one enemy who's active on the board, so we're going to take him off the board first so he can't get revived. Sid does a good job of that, and then we're going to Overwatch in the direction of the drone, anticipating that he's going to move directly down the board at us. We're going to double up our Overwatch shot, so now our heavy is guaranteed to hit him no matter what. I'm going to use Gabe's last action point to Overwatch as well, and now we got 3 Overwatches that are going to take him off the board, and that's it, guys. We're going to skip ahead to the equipment here. We got the Evasion, Common Ranger with 5% Evasion and Blitz, and then Ranger Treads with increased movement and Evasion. I'm going to open up these cases for you guys to show you what I got, and that will be the end of the video. You can see that Marcella did level up, so we got 2 more points for her to spend. I got a reset token, and Michaela ends up joining our squad, so we now have Sniper class available. But that's it, guys. I hope you're finding this series helpful. Please be sure to stick around, because I'll be uploading the rest of the mission soon. Until then, bye-bye. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, please like and subscribe. You can also check us out on Twitch at Hammer Bros Gaming. I am Blades of God, and until next time, have a great day, everyone.